Welcome back to No More Heroes. Travis strikes again after a very long series of texts. We finally have our next death ball. Life is Destroy.
Do you get to play as Destroy Man?
Nope, he's not in this game.
Aw.
I mean, you know he's going to be in the third game. He has to be.
Yanking my chain, yanking my chain.
You see, I'm just thinking of like the board game Life, and then somebody's just stepping on it and like pushing it.
Somebody snaps the wheel
I
in
was
half.
gonna,
It's like,
I was
"You
gonna make a comment
monster."
about how these video game titles don't sound like video game titles, but then I realized this game is written by Japanese people who have like only a barely working understanding of how English sounds. So I guess I should give them a pass. Life is Destroy.
Is this a Sega CD game? Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Oh, son of a... Did we have to revisit this era?
Oh man, I want to see
Who that?
Pepsi Man guy, Paul Butters.
The most positive thing this is making me feel right now is mild regret that Spoonie isn't making videos anymore. Because he's where I got most of what I know of this particular
Also,
era.
for some reason, this guy reminds me of Benedict Cumberbatch.
He does look like Benedict Snackerbacker.
It's like the doctor.
Oh,
Oh boy.
got any dynamite? Go fish. All right, I think Travis Touchdown did it in the trailer with the with the revolver.
You notice you never see Benedict Cumberbatch and Sans Undertale in the same room at the same time?
Oh.
Bumper Snatch Cabbage Patch.
Oh no! God damn it, John.
Why do they have cork openers?
That was probably the worst option you could pick, because at least with the gun and the dynamite, you die quickly.
It's like in Heavy Rain where you have to chop off your finger and you can use the rusty saw.
That
Oh, sparkly! Ooh.
Yeah, I was gonna say the sparkles are kind of out of place.
is the life part of the title like intentionally designed to look like the Time logo, or
Probably, yeah.
Loading. It never guess what this game is.
Yeah, I was like, I also just noticed that the intro music is very Terminator-esque,
Yeah.
on top of just being Terminator entirely.
so
Wait,
Puzzle game.
the hell?
wait. This is a wait.
This is a puzzle game.
Why is a game with that intro a puzzle game?
Just is.
Maybe it's like an old mystery puzzle game. Although, you know, you'll never guess what I'm thinking of right now, and I'm thinking of the Home Alone 2 game, or the Home Alone game. I forget which game it was, on Sega Genesis, where you had this overhead view of, like, the entire frickin' neighborhood, and you were running around trying to protect houses from the wet bandits, and it would transition into side-scroller whenever you went inside a house, I think.
Go ahead. I talk about Gauntlet before. This is very much Gauntlet.
I liked the rule where you can't use your Death Buster during the dialogue bubble. The law of the text will determine your fate. I don't know, something about that line of dialogue just made me laugh. So okay, so what are we trying to like do? Are we trying
We're
to
trying to get to the mansion.
Yeah, no, but I mean like in general, like in each game, are we trying to like kill all the glitches in the video game or
We're
something?
clearing the glitches so we can effectively beat the game and thus have the death ball to make our wish.
Okay.
This is actually... this is... Okay. This is interesting.
It's like those you remember those little like pop-up model car things where you have to get the red card at the end of the thing.
Oh yeah, I'm
And
terrible
like
at
all
those.
it came with the cards that had the preset layouts.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that. It's kind of like that.
They still
You mean
make...
the games I would always cheat at by lifting the car up and then putting it at the end of the thing. I want.
You're an asshole.
Excuse me. It's called thinking
You just,
outside
like,
the
you
box.
just cheated not only the game, but
They
yourself.
still make... They still make plenty of games where the game board is an assortment of cards that you can arrange in different shapes. Like, when they're going for like light Dungeons and Dragons type adventure board games, you know. Descent, that's the one I'm thinking of, I think.
When you get into the mansion, you explore the mansion and kill everything inside, because that's just what you do as Travis Touchdown.
Yeah, we're gonna solve a murder by murdering everybody we see. That's how it works.
Nobody can notice if there's no one to notice.
I,
First rule of Hitman.
I'm pretty sure they still notice if you kill them afterwards. They're just dead now.
Yeah, but I'll be long gone by then.
If you do your job right, they die too quickly to realize they were dying.
You are already dead.
Kakador. No, wait, that's a different anime.
All according to Cake.
K. Kakadora the Explorer.
Carrot cake.
Kikakar cake.
You see, now I'm just imagining.
Where am I going?
I'm just imagining Dora the Explorer, and then the death god is Boots.
What the fuck?
It's an enemy that shoots at other enemies.
Oh.
Man, you
I mean,
must
you-
be
you-
a
I mean,
real
I mean, you
headache
can-
for him.
I mean, you can use these things to just grind experience if you really want to.
Most games that have
They
them,
eventually do run out, though.
yeah, most games that have like infinitely respawning enemies and experience systems will eventually stop giving you experience for killing the mooks in that case.
Fire Emblem does that, yeah.
Or they'll make the mooks really inefficient to grind that way. Because I also feel like most games that have a level system also include some sort of enemy that's supposed to be there so you can grind levels quickly if you want to get to max for whatever reason. Like, most games have a metal slime type enemy that you're intended to grind for if you're really into getting max levels.
Most, but not all. In
If your
Shining
game is
In Shining Force 1, the only way to grind, because there's a limited number of battles and a limited number of enemies per battle, is to intentionally not kill the last enemy, and then retreat from battle so that you can do the battle over again.
That's dumb.
In,
Although-
in Shining Force 2's case, they implemented a semi-random battle system where when you're traveling around the overworld map, when you step on certain squares, the screen will flash and a battle with some random monsters will commence. So if you actually want to grind, you just leave the area, come back, and step on that space again.
Although I suppose in a turn-based strategy game like that, theoretically your game should be, I should say, balanced to the point where you don't need the extra levels in order to keep on going. Although
yeah.
I suppose there are even some cases, like I know that in some Fire Emblems, you can lock yourself into a corner if you only level up certain units, and then those units die or whatever.
In Shining Force's case, though, there are reasons you might want to grind. Namely, like, when you promote your units to their higher version classes, you start out at level 1 again, but you have higher stats if you leveled up more as your base class before the promotion, you know? So you can promote your character from knight to whatever, or warrior to swordsman to hero, whatever, at level 20. But you might want to keep leveling up to level 30 or something before you do that, just to have a stronger character after the promotion. So you'd want
That's
to grind.
similar in Fire Emblem as well, where you can level up. You can go to the next class at 10 or whatever, but you want to do 20 because you get more level ups that way.
Yeah.
And thus are higher stats overall.
Unless you're a pre-promoted unit, in which case it doesn't matter, because
You should
They
be using
plat-
them in the
they
first
plat-
place.
yeah.
Yeah. Pre-promoted units are very much a thing in Shining Force as well. There's like exactly one pre-promoted monk that you can get late game in Shining Force 2. And she's an okay character, but you're much better off finding the hidden item that lets you turn one of your priests into a monk. Because, well, then you have an actually really good monk with healing powers. And it's excellent. Pro tip, make that Sarah, because, yeah, she's a really good monk.
Shining Force 2 is the one you like better, right?
Yeah.
Wait, Was that specifically the Zelda 1 sprite?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. I guess it was on Switch, so they would be allowed to do that, wouldn't they?
Well, I mean, they could.
Well, it was a Travis version of it.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
but it's very. You know how like some games, like retro games, will very specifically make their character look as much like Mega Man as possible. It was the same thing with Zelda.
You mean how it's like every 16-bit, like every RPG that wants to throw back to the 16-bit RPG era mimics Final Fantasy VI, even though there were multiple art styles around at the time?
To the Final Fantasy VI or Chrono Trigger.
Clearly, you guys have not seen the 7,000 Dragon Quest clones that exist.
It's probably more of a thing in Japan, really.
Well, I mean, a lot of those games came out in
But
in
like
the West too, so.
But like Octopath Traveler is like
Oh, yeah.
Final Fantasy VI to the nth.
Yeah, well, that game also. That game's also made by Square, though. Is the other thing?
Yeah, I
Like,
know.
It's more apparent when you're talking about like games that were.
I wish
made by
they'd
different-
mimic Final Fantasy VI's art style in games where it actually makes sense to do so, though, like the port of Final Fantasy VI. Yeah. Instead, what the port of Final Fantasy VI mimics is some horrible mobile Final Fantasy game that looked ugly when it came out in the first place.
Which is ironic considering that later Final Fantasy mobile games would have better sprite artwork than 6 on iOS and Steam.
It's sad. A lot of the Square mobile ports are sad.
Well, yeah, Brave Exvius, or however that's pronounced. The sprite work in that is
I
excellent,
believe so, yeah.
and that's amazing
Yeah.
to me because half the characters in it are either entirely original characters or characters from modern games that never had sprites to begin with. It is a trip to see Lightning from Final Fantasy 13 in 16-bit form, let me tell you. But
Yeah. And it looks good.
yeah, it looks really good.
It's like, why? It's like you just couldn't wait an extra couple years to do the same with
It's kind of
6.
like in Fire Emblem Three Houses where they have old school Fire Emblem sprites for every character in the cast, just for the menu screens. You know? Only a lot nicer because Final Fantasy VI did nicer sprites than Fire Emblem used to.
Well, you're talking
I
about like
guess.
the overworld sprites, right? Because the battle sprites for Fire Emblem are.
Well,
really
the battle sprites for Fire Emblem were always nicely animated, but I wouldn't necessarily call them nice sprite artwork. One of the really limiting things for old school Fire Emblem was that they stuck to a color code. All your units were blue, all the enemy units were red, and that severely hampered the kind of personality that they could get across in the art style.
Sometimes you can do cool stuff with that, though. Like in one of the Age of Empires games, there's a campaign mission. Because in that game, you're always blue and the enemies are always red.
Did
And
it need to do the dramatic like jump cut zoom in on the
Yes.
mansion there?
yes, every time. But one of the campaign missions has the character's having a nightmare where he's the bad guy. And so for that mission, you have the red units, and the enemies have the blue units.
Oh, yeah,
So,
that is pretty neat. Yeah,
I wish I could have gotten that far though, because I'm terrible at
it's
real-time
just
strategy.
you know the first actual nice looking Fire Emblem game in my book is the DS one where you play as Marth.
Shadow Dragon?
Yeah, it was the first. It has other problems, but it was the first kind of nice looking one graphically. So yeah. Okay.
Mazes.
God.
Yeah, you can't go inside that house.
Nope.
I mean, nothing's stopping you.
Oh boy,
A
I'm gonna
wall.
spend this shit until I figure out the right way to go.
wall,
That's what I wanna
Ted.
think.
That's
It's
what's
not
stopping
that,
you.
It's not that. There's spaces between. Just walk in their backyard. Like Travis gives a damn.
There we go.
I mean, these puzzles aren't really that hard, so.
No, it's not meant to be very hard.
It does get a little.
What
it,
is-
It does get a little brain taxing when these kinds of puzzles introduce switches that move multiple things at once.
It's like what, 3 minutes left? I think that's enough time. I know this is kind of like a broad question, but it's like, do you guys have a particular type of puzzle that you're always down for? Like in any game, it could be any genre.
Ones that end in 23 is number one. Because I can guess that very easily.
In my case, I enjoy puzzles of almost every type. even though I might bitch about a few of the ones that give me more shit than others, I'm very much an adventure puzzle enthusiast. So, yeah.
I would say if we're talking about a puzzle put into a different kind of game in order to liven things up, because if we're
I also like how you're originally going to say stretch things out.
well, I mean, sometimes yes, sometimes that is true. But if we're talking about like, oh, here's this action game, we need a little bit of a breather or whatever. Here's a puzzle. I would prefer that it's the kind of puzzle where you're moving something, or you're figuring out the order that something's supposed to go to, as opposed to some sort of cryptic, like, logic puzzle or whatever, where it's just like, where you just
Where you have to figure out complicated numbers and letters and stuff.
Well, not even then. Like, if it's, I would rather have puzzles that like I can interact with
Stuff
the
that
character, as opposed to something where I'm just staring at.
yeah,
like,
stuff that uses like the gameplay mechanics.
So, like, if we're gonna use Resident Evil as an example, like trying to figure out, okay, where do I push this statue in order to get forward, I'm more okay with, as opposed to
what Dino Crisis
does. A bunch of
does.
stained glass windows, and I have to organize the light in a certain way. It's like, no, okay, I don't want to just be staring at this random puzzle screen for a while. Like, I'd rather have something that has.
Oh, you're talking
moving
about
around.
Resident Evil 4.
Yeah, the like.
Yeah.
4 had puzzles?
Yeah, I'm just saying. In general, I would rather have something that allows my character to move around and interact with the world, as opposed to something where I'm just
So you'd
staring
rather
at
be
a
running around the
screen.
art room in Resident Evil 1, lighting up the paintings and figuring that out, than staring at the stained glass window thing and rotating it.
Yeah, basically. Like,
Yeah,
I'm not saying
makes
that
sense.
that specific puzzle is better than the other one. On there, like in a
It's
vacuum,
more you prefer
I'm
one
saying,
over the other.
In general, I prefer that one type to the other type.
Yeah,
It took me way too long to explain that. But
I get what you're saying.
that's something new.
I brought up Dino Crisis, and it does kind of a thing where you have to solve codes a lot, and it does get in the way quite a bit, especially because you do it a lot, and it wears out its welcome. And that would be the end of part 5.
Seems so. We'll see you all in part 6.